All right. Greetings. Greetings. Welcome all to Dorsey's Resource. We're now going live. Topic of this video is going to be silver and gold breaking records, hitting all-time highs. Is this indication the reset, the GCR global currency reset is close? That's what GCR stands for. Again, the topic of this video is going to be silver and gold breaking records, hitting all-time highs is indication the GCR is close? Question mark. I just wanted to discuss. I wanted to come before you guys lately. I appreciate you guys that continue to follow the channel, that continue to rock with me, that continue to stay subscribed, that's continuing to stay loyal to Dorsey's Resource despite throughout the many years the different things that's happened. I've been very transparent with you all about. Just wanted to do a quick video update for those that have been paying attention, that have been keeping up, those that are interested in this particular topic in relation to the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar connected to the Vietnamese dong, to the global currency reset, to the banking changeover with the bankers coin XRP, the other certain coins, the coins that have been chosen by the ruling class to survive once the dust settles. The ISO coins, ISO certification coins that are going to be part of the new system that's coming in. There's some things that are still taking place, that are still unfolding. When I've spoken to my private source out there that I have, and I've had many different sources, and also information that I follow from time to time periodically, and I compare notes as to what is actually transpiring, at least from my perspective, and do the best that I can to interpret the information. Sometimes I do hold back with certain information that is sensitive, because I was listening to one particular call, and I won't say the name. I've tried to refrain from saying the name of one of the calls I've listened to in the past. It had been quite a while since I followed this call, and I compare notes, and a lot has changed throughout the years, but a lot of things haven't changed. It's also, a lot of people don't know, it's also happened numerous occasions. There's also been revaluations that have been very close to taking place or transpiring. I even have confirmation from one of my sources, someone that he knew saw it show up on Forex one particular night during a certain time, and I received word from a particular conference call that I listened to years ago that certain individual was VIP person was exchanged in the middle of the night. The rate was raised temporarily to for this very important individual, whoever they are. They were, of course, kept anonymous. I've talked to people that set up trusts privately. Someone told me directly at a private event some years ago, they do not reveal who their clients are. So this thing with NDA, some people don't believe in, is very real. When I told that testimony about that private clandestine event operation that I attended some years back, there's people that still don't believe me or don't believe that type of stuff is real, just like people that don't believe the exchange centers are real as well. They think that that information is just made up. And I'm here to tell you that, you know, you can believe what you want to believe. At the end of the day, I'm someone who's an actual insider. And that's the reason I did reoccurring videos on the same similar topic to drive the point home. I even put some of the videos on Rumble. I don't talk about that information as much as I used to, by the way, due to the sensitive nature. And I also didn't want to get some of my sources in trouble, or one in particular, but I really don't talk to her as much anymore. I actually haven't heard from her in quite a while. I was going to reach out to, she's in one of the, I'll say the southern states, and I was played an instrumental role with helping this individual get, to, through some doors. I'll just put it that way, speaking in code. So I don't want to be too transparent, but transparent enough. I don't know if she still follows the channel or not, but Yeah, I've knocked down some doors for people to, I had to use some of my connections that I had. It's very real. And one of my sources I appreciate that does reach out to me from time to time, that shares information that's separate from another source that I have, by the way. So this little information that does come in every now and then. I remain quiet, even with a particular institution that I bank with. I was able to read in between the lines. Another source that sent me some information through Telegram, and this is a whole totally separate source. Uh, and I appreciate her reaching out. And I was able to read in between the lines that this bank I'm actually familiar with, I won't say the name of. And the reason I try to refrain, sometimes I've revealed the names of banks, but I try to refrain from, because as I was speaking with one of my sources, there was people years ago that were calling the banks and stuff, and they would listen to this particular conference call, and he would always harp and he would tell people, stop calling the banks, don't go up there, and they don't want to stampede of people. But of course, throughout the years, because this has been around for so long, there's been speculation. There's even been negative publicity done by the mainstream media or by people behind the curtain to deliberately misdirect people, throwing out disinformation intentionally, because sometimes this was never meant. A lot of things are never meant for the general public to find out about, which, if I don't forget, and I touch on the exchange centers, that's the reason I was able to understand exchange centers are real, because that deals with the private sector. A lot of times, and I reminded one of my sources who is training me, I'm actually going through training behind the scenes, by the way, but it's very intense information. Trust me. When I have my private meetings amongst, I'll just say, my secret group. But I don't go into details about that. I've always keep that information classified. Even when I speak to people on Telegram, I'm transparent with you guys as much as possible, as much as I can be. But the individual that was assisting me behind the scenes, I reminded him years ago, when a separate person put me up on this radio show, that the individual is very knowledgeable in the law. I would say a lot more knowledgeable than myself. But I could tell years ago, when I brought up information about registered securities that deals with private banking, or people that have certain types of credentials that are able to negotiate or sign certain securities, and they have what I've learned, and I shared this information, and I could tell at the time the individual that had the show, by the way he responded, he didn't know that information. But because now in this particular movement that I refer to as status correction or redemption education, and because there's a lot of people out there that are monetizing, they're realizing they can make money from social media. I've known this for over 10 years ago. I had my same source that I'm referring to actually told me about it years ago, and it took me a couple years before I actually took action, before I had this channel monetized. But since then, I don't really make anything off this channel anymore due to the censorship, because the smaller channels I've told you guys that was associated, this was the larger channel that had over 8,000 subscribers. And the only reason I'm still able to do videos, because I found out it was still attached to my StreamYard. Other than that, I wouldn't be able to access this channel. That's why I still decided to go live, because it's harder to start from scratch, or it kind of build the momentum over again. This has been complaints from other big time YouTubers who've been censored, who've gone through censorship, demonetization, targeted attacks, gang stalking, from these very evil, sadistic cabal people and people that run YouTube that claim to be. I don't know if you guys heard, this actually made national news not too long ago, but a lot of stuff they expect people to forget. They sweep under the rug, where YouTube, for example, said they were going to restore the channels of people that had talked about the 2020 election being stolen, or I don't know if they brought up the people that talked about vaccines, but I did do some videos where I expressed my opinions. Of course, years ago, I used to get, a lot more political in certain regards, not all the time. This channel wasn't mainly based upon that, but I would share it because people would ask me from time to time with the amount of subscribers that I had. And, I try to appease or try to help answer questions, and even people that know me in person. And I try to, at least give an understanding what my stance is, what my position is on certain topics. But YouTube turned around. I was informed some people they allowed back, they immediately terminated their channels within 24 hours. They lied to Congress. They said they were going to restore these people's channels. So YouTube, and just as well as Facebook, and this is a worldwide consortium that is aligned with the deep state criminal cabal that is part of a different, you could say, a different gang than what Trump is part of. By the way, some people don't understand this, because I get it. Some people say he's establishment, this, that, and the other. But you got to understand, when it comes to this topic, this particular discipline, I don't try to tote my horn or brag, but me and certain individuals are going to be more knowledgeable than a lot of the average general public on this topic. Just understand that I'm very, very, very well studied when it comes to the Illuminati, the ruling class elite, knowing about the New World Order, the one world government, how this even relates to the Bible. I don't attend church on a regular basis anymore. And I was going to do a separate video. I have a lot of topics, different things I like to discuss, but I've been quiet intentionally for quite a while. Different things. I've decided to kind of just take this channel in a different direction, just discuss, whatever's on my mind. But they didn't want me years ago. And I said this, talking about like the dinars. I was basically threatened to stop talking about that, as well as the event that I attended. On top of that, I was also being censored by YouTube. And on top of that, some years ago, I had a former co-worker at my job that told on me and snitched on me, and said I was doing YouTube videos. And they said it was because at the time they were in my work uniform. That's why at times I decide not to show my face or whatever. And they were saying she said she liked the fact that I gave a disclaimer, but they didn't want there to be a conflict of interest, even though they didn't have anything at the time written in the bylaws. Some companies do. Then I even saw like a local news story, but it is for what it is. I was going through what people were going through recently, related to that whole Charlie Kirk situation. I went through that years ago, with basically from different angles, from the private clandestine operation that I attended. I was basically receiving threats from them. Also, they didn't want me doing videos talking about the dinar. That's how I learned. I know for a fact that there was something they didn't want put out. But the problem they had years ago was, people, as technology started to change, more people got access to smartphones and flip phones. Because I was telling a friend of mine who is very well studied, that works in the IT field, that's the computer field, information technology. Couple friends I know, my one friend helped me get my first laptop well over a decade ago. We were one of the first. We remember we used to go to Panera Bread in Southfield, that's no longer at that location we used to go to, and we were being there with our laptops. I remember when Facebook, it came out back in like 2008, and then YouTube was out way back then, and we were already downloading videos. We were already on social media when a lot of people were still using flip phones and stuff. A lot of those videos and stuff that people shared from some years ago that I would get, as I could tell more people were starting to come online, including certain relatives. And I, didn't want to be offensive to them sometimes, but I have to tell them I saw this video already. Now we're on a whole new level, because many of the general public has access to these new technologies, these tablets and smart devices. But this wasn't like this well over a decade ago. It was people that were still behind. So I can honestly, confidently say, me and a friend of mine, because he was more knowledgeable than myself, we had our laptops before a lot of the, general public, or people that now, before even the smartphones. got as good as they are to the point where we're at now. They were good. The technology was awesome, but a lot of stuff, they were in the forms of PDA, personal digital assistants. It's one of the names that was used. If you guys remember Blackberries, and then you had other type of devices where we come from. But now, because there's been a leapfrog in the technology, it was harder for the cabal to suppress certain information from people to keep the general public dumbed down and not really aware of what they're doing. And the reason I brought up one of my sources, by the way, has a friend who oftentimes lately has been bringing up politics to him, and I can tell it's been kind of irritating him because he's a very well balanced person, such as myself. And I said, this particular individual can get caught up in his feelings. And I said, I think I can provide some insight that a lot of people are not able to do. So he says the next time we meet up privately, he would like me to show some information, because I would like to honestly branch out and do some presentations similar. If you guys are familiar with Professor Griff, some of the types of presentations that he's done. If you all were familiar with the guy that goes by the name Irritated Genie, who was out of the Maryland, D.C. area, he kind of got shut down or blacklisted from YouTube. But what he would do, he would reach out. And there was another guy from years ago that went by the name True Freeman, this True Freeman was a white guy from years ago, but he would reach out to like the really destitute urban areas, or known as the ghetto, and black folks, and really teach them about the Illuminati, the ruling class. Because a lot of people are ignorant, and that's why I brought up Trump. He's not part of the same faction as Klaus Schwab. Him and Klaus Schwab do not get along. If you're not familiar with Klaus Schwab, you need to look up who he is. You need to know who he is. Him and Yuval Noah Harari, who were part of the World Economic Forum. There's people in this world who do not have the general public's best interest at heart, not just here in America, but worldwide. And this leads me into a bigger topic, which I probably should have named this video, but I have a tendency to pontificate, that ties in with, they want to establish a one world government, a new world order. And they use social engineering to accomplish this. They poison our food. We know this, of course. We know this for a fact. They put chemicals in our water, our food. And, they spray chemicals, of course, in the air. They've weaponized the medical system. They've weaponized the judicial system, a lot of things. And we're seeing where people are really waking up, but it still needs to be more that are connecting the dots to what particular groups that are behind this. So my friend wanted me to show his buddy that keeps bugging him about politics, these individuals that are operating behind the curtain, that are doing some very malicious things. And that will help paint a picture that, because he looks at Trump a certain way, and I need to point out that you have these other individuals that they don't get talked about at all, that are into eugenics, population reduction, or have done very evil things to the general public. If you knew their resume, and one of my sources was telling me about a guy named Dan Pena. I don't know too much about him. I don't even know if I'm still subscribed to him, since YouTube censored my other my channel that I had. I have to use a burner account. That's where I'm subscribed to most of my YouTube channels. They say I'm subscribed to over 1,000 channels, and I have some other backups on standby, by the way, in case the burner account got shut down or something happened with that, because I saw something, they were trying to censor the comment section or whatever. So I think they were threatening to remove the burner account that I had over some comments that I had left or whatever. I guess some people got really triggered. So it is for what it is. I like to have fun, my downtime. But on a serious note, there's people as books and stuff I've shown in the past. Of course, I'm a lot older now. I'm very, very well studied, like I say, to reiterate. And there's things that churches should be teaching their followers, pastors should be warning their congregation about. And there's things that a lot of times they're not doing, but they're constantly collecting money from people. They're raising building fund and all this money, but they're not teaching Christians or people. This goes for Muslims too, imams in the mosque. They're not teaching their followers, practitioners, about how to prepare for what's coming, for the New World Order, because under the New World Order system, they want to get rid of all religion. Religion is also, it's a whole nother topic within itself, and I can show receipts, evidence. It's man-made, and I can go into details. I have some hardcore evidence behind Christianity and how a lot of even Caucasian people get mad, but they don't understand that the Catholic Church years ago was told to remove all paintings. I can't tell you exactly what part of the world, but any paintings or images, because Christianity, originally what Christ was described, or the person he was based off of, was described as a man of color, a more melanated descent. But the Catholic Church was ordered institutions and places at one time to remove any images that had any reflections of people of color in the Bible. By the way, it got whitewashed. So modern day Christianity is Europeanized by colonizers. When a conqueror takes over a civilization, they take over the belief system. They can either take over the belief system, or they'll corrupt the belief system with the system of their own if they don't whitewash it and get rid of it. And even at one time, look up the Nicene Council. There were other councils, I'm finding out, where it was mandatory that the governments of the world at the time take over religion. Like, the reason people don't understand why you have the Vatican, there was a treaty that was signed years ago. Jordan Maxwell talked about this, rest in peace to the Godfather, Jordan Maxwell, an alternative historian that did astrotheology, forensic research, or known as forensic historian, but he also studied astrotheology. He was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, but he was very knowledgeable historically, and talked about how they set up a treaty, and the Pope symbolizes, because Christ, allegedly, according to their ideology, is not on the planet anymore, then the Pope serves as the vicar, the go-between. By the way, he goes into details. He talks about the treaty. There's an audio you might be able to find. I have it somewhere stored on one of my many storage devices from years ago, whether it's a backup hard drive or audio CD. Because years ago we were using audio CDs can store data as well as DVDs. You can store data from a PC, personal computer. Remember, at one time we were using floppy disks before we got to the type of technology that we have now. A lot of people are not aware, don't remember that, or have forgotten. So yeah, it's a lot. Let me see. We got Money Boy Films in the building. What's up, Money Boy in the building? Family, thank you for joining. By the way, yep. So, but getting back on the topic, it's supposed to be on silver and gold have been breaking records, hitting all-time highs. Is this indication that the GCR is close? I was told by one of my private sources that yes, this is we're getting closer. If you guys have your eyeglasses on, you've been paying attention. Gold is like now over, the last I checked, it's over $4,000 per ounce. The price of silver is already broken all-time highs. The last time I checked, it was at 50. It was at $50 an ounce on Sunday was the spot price. It's already over $51 per ounce when I looked at it today. I don't know where it's at this very moment on Monday, but I was told that we might get our last pullback today. But I heard from a separate source out there that I've been following for a while that we may not see some of these prices never again. Now, of course, down the road, I'm assuming in the future, once we get to much higher prices, there is going to come a pullback, a time for a pullback. But I got word the refineries stopped buying certain metals. They're still buying gold and certain types of silver, but certain silver they stopped One dealer that went into the specifics about something going on with the refineries. They said that the LBMA by approximately February is on track to run out. And the manipulation that's been going on, I told a friend of mine that told me years ago, I didn't understand how he knew that. I hear that that's getting ready to end, and that's going to be tied in because under the new banking system, the new currency system, they're moving over to blockchain technology. There are certain coins, of course, that have been chosen, and I was informed that once the reset does occur, and it looks like gold and silver is going to go up first, but people, it's still not too late to get in, learn as much as possible. It's still not too late. It will behoove you because you don't want to get to a point where you're going to get priced out. But my source told me the new coins, they're going to be pegged. Certain cryptos that are going to be part of the new banking system are going to be pegged to precious metals. This is, coming from confirmed, by the way. It's just not a matter of if it's going to take place. It's just a matter of when. So I can't give you exact timeline, but one thing I can tell you is we are getting closer by silver and gold going up as indication. And I can tell I was following the market heavily, a lot closer last year going into this year, as I've been following it closer than ever before. And I made some big purchases recently, as of last month and even this month, and just periodically since last year. But I also was attempting to get prepared, because when I mentioned my other source, I'm being trained in some other areas. I'm learning about trust and how they operate. And there's a lot of education behind when you get into banking, private banking, and how certain members that are behind the curtain, that I would say on the equivalent of the ruling class elite, they operate. I tell a friend of mine, as he doesn't well, I think he gets it, but he refers to these people, he calls them the shadow people. By the way, that's the name that he uses, how he frames the information, how he puts it into his frame. And I tell him I try to translate the information so he can interpret it, because I feel it's very important. And why I study sovereignty, because I say it's going to come a point in time, and I say the information, I will be honest with you, it's not for the weak. You have to be strong. You have to be willing to learn, be humble, and have an open mind, because the information that you were taught in the school system, you're not going to learn this information in the school system. When I used to attend these meetings years ago. They were through word of mouth at the time. This is before the internet was the way that it is. We had the internet back then, but it wasn't like it is now. And when I would get information, it was still like the old school method. It was basically through word of mouth. When I found out where these private meetings or classes were at, and we didn't have a lot of people nowadays that study sovereignty, aka status correction or redemption education, secure party creditor process, whatever name you give it, American national. People like to have all these different names. Y'all don't understand. I'm saying this as a veteran. Y'all really have it good nowadays. A lot of people have put in work that you all don't have to work as hard. You all are not as burned out as someone like myself, who's been studying and started learning this information approximately exactly 20 years ago, to be exact, around that time period when I was learning, waking up to this information. And I was double red pill when it comes to sovereignty, and then separately, I think the conscious community, learning about my true history, because I forgot simultaneously where some of the classes were held at first that played a pivotal role was the Akibalan community, or the shrine of the Black Madonna, played a pivotal role, and the people from the RBG movement or connected, associated with that. But I call to sum up the conscious community, because, like I said, this information was through word of mouth. You had to know somebody to be able to go to the meetings. It wasn't like today where you can, have some one shared with you, you can join a Telegram group or you can download information. It was different back then. We had to what we would do is we would put our money together to purchase material. We would communicate with those in the know as far as what worked, what didn't work. Back then, it was more risky, more dangerous compared to now because we didn't have as much information that we have now. We didn't understand the level of information that we had. And some things, they did work. And some things, of course, just the technology got old or the powers that shouldn't be shut it down or made it more difficult. And the word I got, they changed things around even with the discharge process. But I stayed in touch with one of my sources told me one of the offices, and I haven't since been in contact, but I was on a call last year where an individual claimed that they this particular address, they still did process instruments. However, I listened to another platform and they stated from their information that had changed. But I do recall a private source that I had told me back, I remember the year was 2017. I have a pretty good memory. And he told me at the time he had discharged student loans for his niece. And after he successfully did an offset or cleared out the so-called debt, they offered her another loan, by the way. But the process he used was like an older method compared to newer methods that were being utilized. So that's kind of just to give you guys a little, true story, by the way. I'm trying to see, do we have some more people? It looks like in the chat section. It says, somebody says, okay, I'm gonna show this comment. Silver $60 soon, and then 1,000 a bit later. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. That's what they're saying. By the way, yep, that's what I'm hearing. So you're right on point. That's from Delistro. I'll show it again. It says silver $60 soon. Says, oh, okay, I'm trying to see a 1,000 a bill later. A bit later. Okay, I see. You said $60 silver. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. A lot of the people in the silver community, basically, there's a lot of different channels that have the term stacker, different silver stacker names. If you go on YouTube, they'll recommend the other related channels I've been following for a number of years. But I've listened to dealers. There's also some coin shops who have pages on there, and they have really good information because, of course, they're dealing at a higher level, being a small business or medium-sized form of entrepreneurs in the commodities market, and they provide some really good information. And yes, we are. It is moving. They say once we pass $50 is like a major resistance because I heard as soon as it hit 50 last Friday. Bo Pony was speaking or mentioned in an interview. He texted his coin dealer and said the powers that be behind the curtain, they slammed it down again because they're fighting hard for it to not pass $50 because for years they have been manipulating the price. The little bit that I know about it, the COMEX exchange, or from what I understand, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, that they have these futures contracts that people buy as like paper silver where they don't hold the physical asset. I guess it's like similar to buying stocks or like you're buying, but it's important to always hold the physical. Now, for some, that know how to use the market to leverage it to their advantage, to each his own. I'm not an expert, but I was informed that they won't be able to continue to do this for long. They also call it spoofing. That Chase Bank, Scotia Bank in Canada, I did an article. If you go back on some of my older videos from this channel, I read the article. I did a screen capture where a judge had ruled they were ordered to stop with the manipulation. And even though they were still doing it, they would get fined lots of money. They would pay off the fine. But I guess my source is so knowledgeable with how this works. He was explaining that because once silver hits for a certain resistance level, and because the industrial supply, because what people don't understand, the difference between silver and gold, and I even believe personally, it's just my personal opinion, that silver is going to surpass the price of gold one day. According to Cliff High's data sets and WebBot reports, he states that silver is going to be used in a newer technology coming out of Antarctica. By the way, silver is going to become so valuable at one point in the future. I don't know how far away or how many years down the line, but I do know, I will say for sure, we're getting closer. And definitely next year, mark my word, is you're going to see a difference. And those prices that we saw, like back when silver eagles used to be like 18 to 20 bucks an ounce, over 5 years ago or whatever, those days are long gone. You're not going to see those prices again. They were actually, one of my sources said, the people manipulating it were actually doing us a favor for those of us that are in the know, that know what to do, because see what the bad guys, the cabal is doing, that's behind, that set up the fraudulent debt-based banking system, by the way, is that's one of the strategies they use. They have a strategy, a method behind stealing your wealth. And I don't claim to be an accountant. Let me give a disclaimer too, by the way. This video is for educational, informational, entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. These are simply my opinions on the topic. This is not legal advice. This is not financial. This is not securities advice. Please keep in mind, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. If you feel you need to seek a competent professional from that regard, whether it's securities broker, financial manager, whomever, lawyer, CPA, do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not responsible or liable for any misuse of the information. All rights are reserved. So just keep that in mind. And this applies to all my videos, every video, any videos that I do in the future, any videos that I've done prior. Normally I've given disclaimers, but just want to say that. But in my humble opinion, silver has a lot of industrial usage. Its demand is used in a lot of electrical devices, medical devices. I was listening to Dr. Kirk Elliott out of Texas. I love a lot of his interviews, as well as I listen to Bo Pony. I don't just listen to one particular person. I listen to, I think the guy's name, David Morgan, who does a lot of interviews. He has really good content about silver. He's been saying for years, and because gold is more so hoarded, it is a valuable asset. Don't get me wrong, because I do have a little gold. I did, pick up, just like one more ounce. There's some guys that have way more than I do. So I'm not, I think it's, gold is still important, but I'm more bullish on silver. I've been a lot more bullish on silver for years, and I looked into it myself. One of the things one of my sources told me when I got involved years ago, and I started buying silver in 2008. And I know a lot of people, because these prices are climbing so fast, wish they could have gotten a lot more than they did. Just be comfortable. At least, if you have the knowledge, take action. Don't waste time, because it's still not too late, by the way. And it's been a lot of channels that talk about silver. The topic has been exploding because there's some major things that are happening as we speak. And it's literally hitting all-time highs. It's breaking records, even gold. But I'm more bullish on silver for the fact that because silver is used in a lot of electrical devices, it's used in medical devices. By the way, silver, there's a major company. I can't remember if it's Samsung, but there's a company that did a contract with the mining company, from what Dr. Kirk Elliott was explaining. And they needed to order a large supply of silver for car batteries. And I'm thinking these are going to be like for the new EVs, or newer cars, they needed a big supply. And he said this big order that they took, I thought it was Samsung, but I can't remember the name of which company, but I'm pretty sure we could probably research it or look it up. But they took out a big supply. They paid a lot. They had a real large order. And he said that was going to put a strain the way Dr. Kirk Elliott, the knowledge that he has a degree. He has a doctorate degree, I found out, in economics. He also has another degree in another regard, but he's very well studied. He also is a dealer with precious metals in the commodities market. And he has very good information. He's been on fire lately. So if you want to listen to a lot of his interviews, every now and then I go to band.video. I'll check out Flyover Conservatives if I'm not watching Alex Jones's videos from his different reporters that he has. He's partnered with other different media organizations. So even if you don't like him or you don't agree with his political views, I don't agree. Just so you guys know, I'll just say on a side note, I shared some of his videos in the past. I believe in his mission overall, because I was having a conversation with a fellow, someone that lives in the building that I stay in, and he was telling me, like, I could tell, like, he sounded like he didn't like Alex Jones because he overheard me listening to him. And I said, hey, I listen to everybody, but let me tell you this. Let me make this clear, is that Alex Jones doesn't believe in reparations. I gave him an example. By the way, I support reparations, just me personally, but that doesn't stop me from listening to him, just because, that doesn't mean when I listen to someone that I co-sign that person's whole belief system. We all think differently. We all have different beliefs as far as when I say to each his own, each and every individual person, we all have our own likes and dislikes. Now, you might find some things with some people, you might find like-minded people you agree with. You may find people you don't agree with. But just understand, at the end of the day, the powers that be also use that to stir up division. But this man, in my humble opinion, if Kanye West has been on this show in person, Candace Owens has been on this show, many famous people, even the drug lord, Freeway Rick Ross, the real Freeway Rick Ross, not the rapper William Roberts, by the way, but the real Freeway Rick Ross, what they base the name off of. He's been on Alex Jones's show, and as well as Professor Griff, other people who are activists who I actually met before. And just because I listen to someone or anybody doesn't mean that you necessarily co-sign that person's belief system. But the reason I brought Kanye up is he said Alex has been on the front lines, and I can testify I've been a listener for a number of years, and I listen to other people as well. And I do believe I wouldn't have learned or had gaining a better understanding of how the Illuminati, aka the ruling class elite, the global criminal syndicate, the bad guys who have their minions and underlings in the deep state that's heavily aligned with the Democratic Party. They do have people that are aligned with rhinos, Republican in name, and neoconservatives, fake conservatives. They call neocons. They're Democrats in disguise, by the way. That's what they call, if you don't not familiar with political science, that's what neoconservatives. See, that's why if you look at Bush, how all of a sudden former President Bush, who was a Republican, is cool with Obama, but he don't get along with Trump. But Trump is a Republican. You guys got to use common sense. So it's like blue gang versus red gang, or vice lords. You got not only the Bloods versus the Crips, or versus the Latin King disciples versus the Latin Counts versus what do you call the white nationalists or whatever. It's different factions. You guys got to understand. Klaus Schwab with the World Economic Forum, they're eugenicists. They're not the same. Bill Gates, for example, who's with population reduction. Hillary Clinton, who praised Margaret Sanger with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood did a lot of damage to the black community historically, by the way. So so many people that have this smoke for Trump, you need to have the same type of smoke and energy for Hillary Clinton, who supported and praised Margaret Sanger, who also had ties to, like I say, to the eugenicists, and others I can name. And I can give you what I know for a fact what they did to the black community. And I have an article from a black newspaper, a black woman, by the way, who did a story from, I picked it up from a black owned restaurant that I used to pick up, order food from years ago, because the elder that taught me, I tried to show love and support. It was called Quinn's by Baker's Lounge near, what was that, 8 Mile and Livernois. Those that are familiar with the area, I don't know. But it used to be Quinn's fish place. But they had soul food at the time. Some years ago, they had newspapers. They were like local newspapers that dealt with like black issues, black economics, black politics, stuff like that. And I saved the articles. They had some really good stories in there. And they did one about the welfare state, what affected the black community, because I can debunk so much of these disinformation, these disinfo agents on YouTube. That's, it's ridiculous. But I got receipts to back up what I just went over, by the way. I actually did a video. It should still be up on this channel, Can a Black Community Come Together? But it didn't have a lot of views, and actually went over an article that she did, by the way. But I have some other stories that she did in this particular newspaper. So I just wanted to clarify that it's a lot to unpack when it comes to politics, but a lot of people that have this smoke, you need to learn about the World Economic Forum. You need to have this same type of smoke. If you don't like Trump, you need to look into who Larry Fink is. Need to understand what BlackRock. I had told a friend of mine, I'm giving you receipts. I told, well, I won't get to that, but I mentioned, if you look, they even admit they did a nightly news report with Lester Holt. NBC Nightly News did a story and talked about why rents were rising across the United States of America one time. And they said BlackRock was directly responsible, and Larry Fink. So let that be a hint. And he was just appointed as a co-chairman of the World Economic Forum. Larry Fink, mighty funny. Why would this guy, Larry Fink, look up who that guy is? You guys that have all this smoke, all you people that claim to be liberal. By the way, I'm personally not a registered voter. I have not been a registered voter since 2004. So understand, when I bring up politics, I don't just say that I'm apolitical just to sound good, but I'm neutral. I'm not paid by neither political party. Technically, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't get paid by InfoWars. I don't work for InfoWars. I don't work for Alex. I don't work for George Soros. I don't work for Open Society Foundation, which, by the way, I showed my friend who wants me to share with his buddy who's been bugging him about politics. He wants me to share with him a presentation that I showed him privately, who some of these people were aligned with, by the way. And he was blown out the water. And I said, the narrative would be, I said, I can break some stuff down, by the way, because I actually have a private source, friend of mine, close friend, who's from one of the southern states. And he found out, him and his one brother died, but they both found out at one time that their brother worked for George Soros, will receive money from him for Open Society Foundation. I kind of know his name, and my friend showed me years ago, because I had got caught up, when I supported at one time the Black Lives Matter movement with Mike Brown, with that situation. And I had my own views and that whole, as far as the whole movement and stuff. But I started to ask questions back then, and I had a guy from the Special Forces, former, I don't know if he was current, but he contacted me. He used to be friends with me on one of my older Facebook accounts that I deactivated. His last name was Hennigan. I don't remember his first name. I think he was based out of Florida, and he used to always tell me, he would inbox me. He's a white guy, and I'm a black guy. So he would inbox me. He said, they're doing this to try to divide you, to separate you. So I put my thinking glasses on, because I would get caught up emotionally, because there is stuff that goes on. Don't get me wrong. There is, hate crimes and stuff, like bad stuff like that is real, does happen. But also at the same time, and me and a friend of mine discussed this, you have to watch out. You have to be careful too, because the powers that be, they also want, and Klaus Schwab mentioned this specifically, he wants to create an angrier world. He's behind a social credit system. You heard of 15-minute cities or high-rise apartments, where they want to to create these massive transportation platforms. They want to get rid of all public private vehicle ownership by 2035. Our governor in Michigan, Whitmore, already signed a bill by a certain time period. They want to get rid of people from being able to own their own private vehicles. I forget what else. They also want to make, it's not a coincidence why they want to make rent so high. That's why I brought up Larry Fink from BlackRock. So you can't even afford home ownership anymore. Notice I saw stories in the state of Georgia. They were kicking elderly residents out of their homes because they couldn't pay property taxes. That's all part of that whole Federal Reserve cabal banking system. Even though I've never owned a house before, and had I known, I told a couple friends of mine that are pros in real estate, and had when I was younger, you know, if I made some smarter moves, smarter decisions. But one thing I did do throughout the years, and I stunned a friend of mine, was shocked, because we're getting up there in age where, you know, your health starts, if you don't exercise, you don't get enough sleep, you're not getting the proper nutrition, then, you know, your body, you start going through what's called macular degeneration, you know, a certain regard. So that's why, but make a long story short, the reason I'm telling this story, a friend of mine got shocked when I told him one thing that I have been doing throughout the years that a lot of people haven't, is I've been saving and putting. My mother used to tell me when I was younger, like, she's called me by my middle name, which is Alan. She said, Alan, you need to save. You need to put some money aside. You need to stop spending all your money on video games or squander, which she didn't really know. I didn't play. There's moments I would go months without playing my gaming systems and stuff. I would really, you know, just do other things. But I didn't really, when I had to move back in at the time before I moved out, and she would always accuse me a lot. That's on a side note of playing video games and stuff. It's like, seemed like that was the scapegoat. And I would try to explain, I don't really, I'll go months or weeks at times without even playing the games at all. You know, I can't remember what other things I was doing. Or one of the things was I was studying this type of information dealing with status correction was one of the other things once I found out about that. But she would say the point of the message, you stop buying your money, spending, squandering on expensive clothes, trying to keep up with the Joneses. I remember she told me some basic things some years ago. She told me how certain things depreciate in value, but other things appreciate. So when I found out from one of my sources years ago, because my mother used to take me to these meetings through the Bible Prophecy Club. I was heavy into that because the concept, she wanted to, from a motherly aspect, she wanted to try to keep her son in the church so I didn't fall too far in the streets, get around the wrong crowd, which I did at one time, hang around the wrong people. And she felt, you know, she saw how I had an interest with learning about, because there was a part of Christianity that taught about the New World Order, the mark of the beast, the tribulation period. She used to go to the Bible bookstores, like Straight Gate Church years ago. It's a big mega church in the city of Detroit. It's still around. They still should have a Bible Christian bookstore that's near there, just like where Greater Grace's old church used to be. That's now called Greater Emmanuel off of 7 Mile. I think they have a bookstore like right across the street on 7 Mile and Schaefer. But she would get these magazines. I was a little boy at the time, and I used to look at it. I used to inquire, like, what is she reading about? And I saw one of them said the Four Horsemen, and she told me, she said, oh, you can't learn about that. You're too young. So she said, you need to be saved. She said, you're really supposed to be filled with the Holy Ghost, but you need to be saved before I can start teaching you or telling you about this certain. But I was the type of kid, I was very inquisitive. So I would keep inquiring, keep pressuring. So finally, she pulled me to the side one day and she let me, said the Lord's Prayer with me. That was like, for when you get saved, you know, do you believe in, you know, I won't go through it, but you guys already know, for those that are Christians, understand. And I was 7 years old at the time when I first gave my life to the Lord or became saved. But I've since, maybe you can consider, haven't been in fellowship with what they call backsliding. some women, some friends from the church said, oh, just say that we're not in fellowship anymore. I said, y'all have a funny way of putting things. But make a long story short, that was kind of like my form of initiation, because she said, you know, you got to be responsible learning about this information. And I was able to connect the pieces. I think I went further with learning about the Illuminati, the New World Order, how this connects. And I'm going to give you guys a summary, and I've kind of mentioned where we're coming upon a time where these members of the elites, I see how they're setting the system up in a future that doesn't have the general public's best interest at heart. And America as a country is one of their last strongholds, as well as one of the reasons they don't tell you or explain why they want war with Russia. It's not just about Ukraine. Ukraine is the overlay for the underlay. But the globalists, really, they don't have control. They also want full control of China. I heard they infiltrated the Chinese years ago, back in the early 1900s. They used the Freemasons to infiltrate China. They used the opium trade and other things historically. And then Chinese found out who they were, and they kicked the Illuminati out and basically created their own Illuminati. They actually have their own version, which is something else. When I found out about that, and I found out years ago from a friend of mine that had a level 4 secret security clearance in one of the branches of the military, when I found out Russia and China were doing training exercises, because of course those two countries are allies with one another. They're under communism. We're under a different system than they are. But the one thing, the globalists, the ruling class, the European elites, they want to infiltrate. They have already infiltrated Russia some years ago, but they don't like what Putin is doing. Because Soros, I was informed, he already infiltrated Ukraine. He already went in, even Russia. But they started, like the Russians, they don't allow the LGBT community. They kicked them out. By the way, the globalists don't like that. The globalists are behind. They're just using them, that particular group or the alphabet community, as part of the whole. It's connected to eugenics and also social engineering. By the way, the globalists have done this for years. Like the Rockefeller and Ford Foundation funded the feminist movement. Let me say that again. Rockefeller and Ford Foundation funded the feminist movement. It's not a coincidence. You look at study who Alexander Soros is. If you don't know who he is, he took over. They announced this publicly. People don't know this. They put this out there publicly. He's one of George Soros' sons. He took over Open Society Foundation. He funds a lot of the so-called hardcore left activist groups. Some refer to as anarchist groups. He funds Antifa, Communist Revolution of America, RevCom. There's other factions. That he's a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire, by the way. But you don't hear about it. The mainstream media won't tell you. The Democrats have a lot of billionaires. You hear about Republicans, but Democrats, they have Mark Zuckerberg. He was just pretending. I asked a friend of mine why he was at Trump's inauguration. A friend of mine said, Mark, the reason Zuckerberg was trying to kiss up to Trump because, Facebook got sued. They had some serious things, like Google had to settle. He said he's just trying to be able to get a pardon, by the way. But he actually was funding the law firm, or one of the law firms that was going after, I think, Mayor Eric Adams and some other things. But a deal was struck behind the scenes with Mayor Eric Adams, that's the current mayor of New York, that decided, he did put out a statement not too long ago, he's not going to be rerunning for re-election. But I was informed, listening privately prior to Trump winning the election, that or just afterwards, there was a deal was struck with Adams, by the way, because Trump was he's not playing games this time, he's playing hardball. But understand the globalist faction of the ruling class elite, they want to bring us into a totalitarian government, a one world state. They use secret societies, by the way, how they infiltrate a lot of organizations and things. I learned this from my own research, but when my mother used to take me to these meetings years ago through the Bible Prophecy Club, they would bring in different guest speakers. I remember there was speaker Dimitri Duduman. They brought in Ken Peters, Prophet Chuck Youngbrandt, who's a biblical prophet. You can look some of these people up on YouTube. You may be able to find their videos, like Chuck Youngbrandt, for example. But I remember, because I have such a good memory, Pastor Lindsey Williams, by the way, rest in peace to, was also connected to the Bible Prophecy Club. He gave a lot of good information from his experience, how he had lived with the faction of members of the ruling class elite, because there's different factions. Just like I talked about, there's blue team, red team, just like there's different gangs between the gangster disciples, the Bloods and the Crips, or Latin Counts, or Latin King disciples, or Aryan Nation, or Aryan Brotherhood. I forgot to mention. Just like you have different factions within the gang. So understand, at a high level, even if you say Trump is part of the establishment, he does not get along with certain globalists. Klaus Schwab with the World Economic Forum does not like Trump. But Klaus Schwab, you guys don't know. If you've never heard of, you need to look up who Klaus Schwab is. Or you need to look up who Yuval Noah Harari is. Yuval Noah Harari stated out of his own mouth that we no longer need humans. They've declared us obsolete. Klaus Schwab wrote a book, something along the lines of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, where they've declared humans are obsolete. This is the rise of artificial intelligence, robots. They don't need humans anymore. They've declared us obsolete. So just think about that. Just give you guys some homework to do, because a lot of people, that think they know or talk politics and stuff, they don't bring up these are the movers and shakers in the world, by the way. Very important. It's funny when I go deep in these topics, the amount of people drop off that are listening or watching, because YouTube is definitely, they suppress my numbers. They keep my numbers at a certain amount. Of course, they want to prevent me from really growing my channel, expanding, because of what they did. But I'm fortunate that I was able to reach those that I was able to reach, by the way, and warn them of the censorship, and be able to go to other platforms like Rumble, for example, Brighteon.com. I don't know if BitChute is still around. I haven't looked up BitChute. There's many different web hosting platforms and options. You can just look up. You can even go on YouTube and do a search and put in what are alternative web hosting platforms that don't censor, or they're limited to censorship. Because a friend of mine was still complaining. I said, I told my buddy, I was about to say his name, but I keep him private. I said, Rumble, they may censor, but they still are good. They're still better than YouTube overall. So even if they still do, certain things here and there, they're not as egregious as YouTube. YouTube is very egregious. YouTube is owned by the cabal. Their parent company was Google, which is now Alphabet. It's funny, they come up with these new names of these acquisitions. Their parent company, Alphabet, by the way, they're heavily connected to the cabal. So, it's important that we have platforms, because if you study the essence, the laws of freedom of speech is very simple. But this has been weaponized by the technocrats, the imperialists, and specifically the name I brought up earlier, Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, does not want people to be free thinkers. By the way, this is a fact. He stated this out of his own mouth. He wants people to believe the official narrative from the mainstream media. I tell you guys, question what you hear from the mainstream media. Don't just take for granted, take for word with NBC Nightly News, with if Lester Holt is still hosting that, or David Muir with ABC Nightly News. Question your local media. Because a friend of mine showed me some years ago, they had videos showing how many news agencies, they can't say certain things all across the country. They have similar talking points. They read from a teleprompter, because if they go off script, there's been people that have been fired, terminated, removed from their positions. Those are the real trailblazers. Those are the real people that are the real movers, the real innovators of society that have stood up, that have risked it all, losing their money, their job, because it's not always about the money, the fame, but it's about morals, integrity, honesty. Your news is not, your mainstream media is not what it's supposed to be, what it was meant to be. It's been taken over. It's been weaponized. It's also a worldwide consortium, corporate media. That's what ABC, CNN, all of those are your corporate, or more so corporate. corporate media, and it can go deeper when you get into the differences. I know some people may say that about Fox, but one thing why I rock more with the Republican Party versus Democrats, because I said Republicans, they aren't doing things like the Democrats were trying to make you accept a certain agendas. By the way, trying to force you to before this cancel culture thing, dealing with more so with the alphabet community. A lot of people had issues with that. Even funding, where the money from taxpayer dollars is being spent, was going. I just saw a video today that was breaking down where the Democrats were sending American people, if they knew, they would be mad if they found out where their taxpayer money was going. But these things, it was a politician. His last name was Kennedy, and he was mentioning. He said he wasn't making this up, but he was going over where the money from that taxpayers, people, American people, are paying into the economy. He was explaining where this money was going. So, like, these are things that we need to question, and this was the Democratic Party. Now, I know always there's people that revert back to say, oh, Dorsey, the Republican Party is bad too, or they're two heads of the same snake. Yes, I understand that, but what you need to understand from the names, you need to research the names that I mentioned earlier, like Yuval Noah Harari, Klaus Schwab, Larry Fink, Alexander Soros, his son. It's more people. Bill Gates, eugenicists. They are more deeply embedded heavily with the Democratic Party. Republican Party, yes, has elements that have been infiltrated, but they aren't trying to break apart your family structure. You know, I'm more of a family-oriented guy. By the way, I don't have any children. I've never been married before. By the way, it's funny because I did a video a while ago. You guys know I have been talking about the dating stuff quite a bit. And I was going to do a separate video, but I might as well. I don't mind mixing topics, but I joined these dating sites, and it's just been just about a little over approximately a month ago, just a little over a month ago. And one of the sites alone, I discovered I had I currently have over 2,000 direct messages, and I called a couple of friends, several friends privately, and I told them I was just tripping out because the way I was raised as growing up in a Christian church by my parents, a two-parent household for a number of years until my parents got divorced. Mother and father they separated around the time I was in middle school. By the way, my mother confirmed when I asked her, by the way, didn't they get a divorce? I kind of forgot some years ago, but I'm the oldest child, so I was there for, I've seen the best of both worlds. I've seen the difference between a two-parent household, and I've seen what it's like to be in a single-parent household. I also know what it's like to be a son husband. I have that responsibility. That's why I guess my job puts so much pressure on me to cover so many of these different places I go to, in the security field I work in, these different schools versus my night shift on the weekend and stuff. Because of my work ethic, my responsibility. But that's from my background, the way I was raised with morals and principles and the work ethic that I do have, by the way. So I've gone over a lot of information. Kind of lost my train of thought, the point that I was making, but the thing to sum up overall, the reason I'm doing this video, and the topic to jump back to, it just came back to me, was the topic of this video was silver and gold are breaking records, hitting all-time highs as indication the GCR is close. I went over that information already. I did do some videos in the past. Check out the videos if you want more information that's in relation to that. I put in a thumbnail that has the crypto coins that are ISO certified. And I talked about under the new system, my source told me they're going to be pegged to gold and silver, by the way. So just keep that in mind. So that's indication once gold and silver hits, once the price of silver and gold gets so high, people are going to get priced out. And once the official GCR takes place, my source mentioned, that's when you're not going to see the prices ever come back like down as low again to where they used to be. Like even where we're at now, they might not even come down ever this low again. So it's still not too late. Just to give you a heads up, you better get in while the getting's good. But to shift gears a little bit back to when I lost my train of thought, I was bringing up the example when I joined these dating sites, and the reason society it opened my eyes up. It's really been weaponized by the powers that shouldn't be. Is what a friend of mine refers to them as. With them they funded the feminist movement. With Gloria Steinem, by the way, she was sent in as an agent. This is declassified by her own admission by J. Edgar Hoover, former head of the FBI, to infiltrate the black community. She recruited a black woman by the name of Michelle Wallace. Look up Gloria Steinem. Infiltrated the black community. She recruited a black woman by the name of Michelle Wallace. And Shahrazad Ali mentioned in the movie Hidden Colors, she mentioned how that was more so white women were having issues with their men. It wasn't as prevalent. You did have chauvinism or some men, where there was issues going on, but it wasn't as prevalent. But it got worse. It affected the black community worse when you add when black people accepted the entitlement programs, the welfare state. All of this contributed to the destabilization, the weaponization of the black community. See, it's funny when I'm speaking truth to power, more people drop off. They don't want to listen. How this all ties in. This is all important information, by the way. But a lot of people, the good news, a lot more people are waking up overall. But the overall dilemma we're dealing with, one of the most important things that I'm going to address that it's important to know about is these politicians, the presidents and stuff. You need to look at the people real high up. You need to research them. For all those people that, I'm just saying, that dislike Trump, that got all this smoke. Because if Kamala Harris had been in office, by the way, if she was in office right now, I told a friend of mine, you would have World War III already. Remember when Trump's first term, he was pulling troops out different countries. People say, oh, he's more so for the war. That's what Republicans, neocons, were known for years ago. Like Bush, he's a neocon. That's the difference. He's more so. Trump is a different type of Republican. He's not a neoconservative. You have rhinos. Those are Republican in name only. There's differences. No, study political science. Understand the differences. But if Kamala Harris, I guarantee you, if she had beaten Donald Trump, you would have World War III would be going on right now. And still, it's gonna most likely happen. That's what the globalists, the cabal wants. They have a lot of power. A lot of people don't like what's going on with the Israel thing. And I get where they're coming from. Netanyahu, a friend of mine, was telling me, I didn't know this, how they had given money to Israel before they had even given money to the American people in the budget. When the Congress people vote for the money, they had given money, and people don't like Israel being involved in their politics. I understand because I have those concerns myself. I think, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Why is a whole other country, have this much power over our politics, our politicians, our financial system, where they're receiving money first over American taxpayer dollars that were going in to fund these so-called different things that they decide that the politicians, legislators vote for. By the way, this is facts. Facts. Research my information. Look it up. If you question it, even though I did give a disclaimer in the video earlier, but people, this is just common sense to me. But I guarantee you, I told a friend and several people, if Kamala was president, if she had won, because for those that follow in the sovereign movement, with Tamika Thorpe, aka Path to Freedom, mentioned, she had sources contacting her that young men were receiving notices from the Selective Service Act to sign up. That comes in the mail once young men reach 18 years old. That was indication during the Biden-Harris administration. They were getting ready for war. Understand, it's probably going to happen, and it appears as though the timing behind the global currency reset, I noticed they've been stalling this for years, because I remember when TNT used to mention that was not contingent upon all these other things taking place when they make these excuses, because it happened a lot of times. It almost honestly took place, but it was always pulled back at the last minute. The revaluation, which the dinar is just the main currency, but there's a bunch of currencies, by the way, that it was tied to. By the way, and there's a currency booklet for those that don't believe. You can research. I know he mentioned years ago he would go to the bank. His banks would allow him to look through it. Some banks didn't, but I actually caught a teller years ago looking through the pages when her boss's manager came over and told her to put it up, because I guess they were told at the time to keep it low key. They didn't necessarily want the general public finding out, or certain people at a certain level, at the retail level or lower level of banking, maybe at that time. But I saw her flipping through the pages, and I could clearly see, and she looked like she was curious. She was surprised at the time. And that Chase is no longer, they only have the ATM machines. That Chase Bank, that location is near where I used to stay. I don't stay in that location, but that location was on, if you're in the Detroit area, was right off of 8 Mile near Southfield Freeway. A lot of people familiar with the west side, northwest side of Detroit will easily be familiar with that area. That Chase Bank, that I tell that story, that famous story years ago when I asked the teller about the Iraqi dinar, and she used to tell me, one of the tellers say, we don't deal with the dinar. But there was one time when I first inquired, the teller was honestly trying to help me out. And I saw her pull out, because they have a bulletproof screen, clear glass screen. I was looking at on the other side, and I saw her flipping through the pages, and I could clearly see the Vietnamese dong and the Iraqi dinar. And then I remember TNT Tony from listening to his calls years ago, because I have a good memory. And he mentioned how he used to go up to the bank and ask to look through the currency booklet. So they have official books to help you identify the legitimacy behind things if you have questions. So you know what I did years ago, on top of that, because I'm a natural researcher and I'm inquisitive, I went online, just give you hint, and I looked up currency books, PDF files, hint, and found them that had confirmed images of what I had purchased. By the way, so if this was a scam, why would official currency books that have all the currencies listed worldwide have the photos and the currencies that I bought? By the way, why did Chase Bank at one time used to sell it? Fifth Third Bank, which I just got word is acquiring Comerica Bank. Big bank take little bank. If this was a scam or it was fake. So it's so much evidence, but I still get that from time to time from trolls, people out there. And let me address what I heard too about the exchange centers briefly, that there's people that don't believe. And I'm saying you have the right to believe what you want to believe, but I personally believe that, in my opinion, that there's going to be exchange centers, because I understand that's why I told the story about the private sector, that private clandestine operation I attended, because that more so, the exchange centers more so deals with, if you understand the private sector, of how the elites operate and the ruling class, by the way. So I'll let those, you'll find out in the end, once all these things takes place. It may be hard, difficult, because there are really non-disclosure agreements. There are things that people have to sign. I'm not a big fan of NDAs, by the way. Some people know that. There's some I was informed. Remember that event? I did not go back. I did not re-sign the NDA, by the way, for those that had questions. They did offer it, but I felt I did not sign a newer one. There was an older one, but I mentioned how they breached that contract. That's why they created a newer one. So I'm not bound. I'm not currently bound by any non-disclosure agreement. And I still wanted my package back, because I said, if you're not going to get me funded, then you needed to return all my personal documents and information, because that is a form of identity theft and securities fraud. I was informed, and I could seriously, whenever there's fraud involved, there's no statute of limitations on fraud. As far as filing charges or pressing charges or filing a complaint, there's no statute of limitations for fraud. So I didn't reach out to Gary Colombo. That was the person I was told allegedly that had my package, but I felt Pastor Tony King, aka Anthony Fisher, was responsible because he was the overseer. He promised that we would receive those documents, those thumb drives that were submitted. I attended December of 2009 from the 2009 group. The last weekend of 2009, I was in Orlando, Florida, at the World Marriott Hotel right around the corner of Nickelodeon Studios, which I have photos from. I remember because a friend of mine I contacted because I had just lived in Florida a couple years prior, showed up with his wife and came because I happened to be in the area, during that time period. A.K. Anthony Fisher, I never received my package. I was informed. So what's up with that? So I said the pictures and stuff, the videos don't come down. And I stayed 10 toes down in the trenches on that until I got funded. And I said, because you made an ironclad promise. Because if you don't fulfill this, you're a liar. You lied. And I don't want to hear this BS from different sources. Oh, Tony was under a non-disclosure agreement. Because it's like I hear this dude make every fucking excuse. Every excuse in the world from taking accountability when you promise these people. And I've talked behind the scenes to people like, Nichelle, others, people out there that told me privately, there's people that died. That's not what they signed up for. So morally, ethically, I don't want to be in your shoes because karma is real. To every action is an equal and opposite reaction. And I talked to my longtime mentor, told me years ago, and I said, because when the elites do bad stuff to people, do they ever face karma? Is there things that they have to pay for? And he shook his head. He said, yeah. He said, oh, yeah. Pastor Lindsey Williams even mentioned that what he learned from his so-called elite buddies that they claim they had a so-called code of ethics. They had to tell you about things before they actually did it. Very interesting. But I believe karma is real. And you did these things to people. You made a promise. That's why I held your feet to the fire. So you send your minions or you listen to my calls yourself or my podcast or my vlog, as you call it, or whatever. You owe us. And I'm just putting it out there. Or there's karma. And there's other people that were involved. And like I said, at the end of the day, karma is real. And it's also in the Bible, whatsoever man soweth, he shall also reap. Because as other individuals, as Dawood Madius informed me privately, he said, oh, John, he promised you on one of the calls. And I remember that, yeah. I said, I'm glad you were aware of that. Other people heard that. Heard all those conference calls he did. He promised you. Very interesting. But I'm still not funded yet. Very funny. Very interesting. But my experience is different because I have even someone that tried to compare her situation to my situation. My situation is nowhere near what you experienced with this person told me with a certain individual that they bought a package from. I actually had to take time off from work to attend these events. We had to coordinate, and they would change the dates at the very last minute, which would mess up because at times when you're still punching the clock or you're still working a 9-to-5 job, you have to give at least 2 weeks notice in advance. Some jobs, based on a position, if you're in a supervisory position, it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot harder to get time off. So I worked really hard for that. And these are things I may not have addressed or brought up, but I had, like I said, to reiterate, had other people compare, but that's why I feel your situation is not nowhere near in comparison to what I personally witnessed and experienced and have shown so many receipts throughout the years. And like I said, a lot of newbies that are studying status correction has it real good because there's people like myself and others that put in a real hard work years ago to get this information out. So the technology got more advanced. It's a lot easier. People don't have to work as hard as me and other people that have been part of this. And big shout out to the brother Marcus when I had a conversation with him years ago out of the Georgia area that understood this at the time, that what I had gone through. And he said, he felt where I was coming from, because he said you were a part of this earlier on. So, he said, I can understand, being in your shoes. A lot of people want to walk in your shoes or just see from the outside looking in, but they have no idea. It's not on that level. What myself and certain other individuals have gone through. So just want to say that before I shut this video down. And but things are getting closer. The word I'm getting is indication is pointing to after silver and gold breaking all-time highs, that the GCR is close. It's closer. I feel even if they delay this and push this back, it'll probably go no later than, because it's been delayed so many times. I say no later than April or May next year. If they don't push, I hear allegedly it's supposed to take place sometime before the end of this year. I got a word allegedly, but they've delayed this so many times, so that's why I don't get caught up in dates, rates, stuff like that, because they've, and it's been mainly, the cabal people, the evil ones, and it seems like they're trying to time this around bringing us into war when it was not meant. The people, we needed this to happen so people would be able to set their trust up, so people would have the currency, they would have the funding already to do some of the things to get prepared years ago. They never should have waited this long. I always disagree with that when these so-called people behind the curtain, or cabal, or so-called good cabal, changed their plans and said, they're going to have to wait, or we're going to make them wait. No, you guys should have allowed when people needed to access that funding so they could get properly structure themselves, get their trust set up so they would not be going through hell, catching the hell. Then you guys talk like when you guys spoon feed the status correction, the sovereign information that's coming from high up, or the correct processes or procedures that you designated to certain people to still charge people while you have all the information. And you guys play those type of reindeer games, then that's why you get the blowback that you've gotten, or the pushback, because people can see through the BS that you guys are doing behind the curtain. We know you guys have all the information with the status correction, and what you've done, how you put it in certain people's hands so they could spoon feed and charge certain people so you guys could get a rise or kick out of it, because you guys are part of the criminal elite. You guys are evil and just as sadistic and wicked as they are. You guys get a rush and laugh at that because you see other people as serfs, as useless eaters. But we see through your games, and people are waking up, and you got a matter of time to get things correct. Because as it says in the Bible, whatsoever man soweth, he shall also reap. Don't matter how much money you have, how powerful you are, how many secret security clearances you have. One guy, Tremaine Williams, told me years ago, and I brought this up to him. He said, bro, he said, anybody can be touched. And I said, very interesting. So you just better watch your karma and how you treat people, because that just might come back in other ways. There's a saying, God works in mysterious ways. So just putting it out there, you had an obligation to do what's right and fulfill that obligation. You wouldn't have pushback. You wouldn't have blowback if you did what was right. And you try to tell your minions, your followers, this, that, and the other, but they can see through your BS as well. Because some of them have even told me things, and I'll just leave it at that. But to each his own. And that's pretty much a wrap, guys. I hadn't done a video in a while, but I just wanted to get my way in. Silver and gold is breaking record hitting all-time highs. It's still not too late, but you better hurry up while the getting is good. And it's important to hold the physical as you maintain your purchasing power. The U.S. dollar, as it weakens, as hyperinflation, if it comes in, it's a hedge. Both metals are a hedge against inflation. They don't go as far as they used to. Subscribe to as many silver channels as possible if you want to become educated. There's a bunch of different silver stacker channels out there, YouTube channels that will properly educate you. Also, to be aware of not buying fake stuff. Learn how to test your metals. Get a weight machine so you know you're buying. Buy from a legitimate shop. Stay away from eBay. If you're newbies or beginners, stackers, stacking silver for the first time, I keep hearing these stories. People stop buying off eBay. Only buy if you can find a local coin store in person. But learn as much as possible. Learn how to test your silver out with a magnet to make sure you're not buying fake stuff. You know, that's why why I mainly stuck to the rounds. I didn't, because a lot of bars, one of my sources told me years ago was scam. A lot of schemers would use fake silver bars a lot. They would scheme people with those. That's why I kind of personally, stayed away. But they got videos. There's guys that do have silver channels that warn you, that show you what to watch out for. But learn about that. I'm giving you free game right now. This is free, powerful game information to help help you maintain, if you do have a family, a financial legacy down the road. Constitutional silver can also be used for trust. Can be tied because it's a tangible asset. It helps with the situs of the trust, whether it's foreign or common law express trust or irrevocable trust. So that's what Morgan and Peace dollars are for. Also, St. Gaudens or $20 Liberty pre-1933 double gold eagles, double eagles, the $20 pieces. That's pre-1933. Those can also be used for a car trust. By the way, you have actual tangible asset. But I'm still learning, going through private training from a separate source that I have, by the way. But I'm just giving you guys free game as the price is going up. These are the final days of countdown before people get priced out significantly, because silver's headed to triple digits. And it's like someone put in the chat, you're going to see probably thousands soon. That's not a coincidence. So just to give you guys a heads up, silver is headed to all-time highs, and gold, by the way. But I'm more bullish on silver, and I explain why. Because silver has the demand for it. It's going to run up. And, once scarcity kicks in, and that's already happening, panic buying. They said some dealers are mentioning they've never seen where a lot of people, there's a demographic of a lot of people who are buying right before around the $50 mark, before it even hit 50 and went above. There's a lot of panic buying taking place. There's people who wish they could have bought more when the prices were cheaper some years ago. It's not too late. You haven't been totally priced out. Constitutional silver is still at a good price right now. Morgan dollars, Peace dollars, Kennedy half dollars, Walking Liberties, Franklin halves. You also have Roosevelt dimes pre-1964, Mercury dimes, Roosevelt dimes. Those are like they say for stuff hits the fan, for bartering, because you need to fractionalize to break your silver down like you break $100, $50, $20, $5, $1 bills and change. That's the purpose of buying fractional silver, because once it hits, like you have fractional gold, like 1/10 ounce, that's below an ounce. You even have grams. So when people say it's not affordable, look into fractionalize. Constitutional silver is still very affordable. But that's also running out of supply, running low. Like I said, to reiterate, Mercury dimes pre-1964 that contain 90% silver on back. Mercury dimes, Kennedy half dollars, Franklin half dollars, Walking Liberty half dollars, 1964 on back. Make sure it's got to be 1964 going backwards. That contain, I would stick with the 90%. Morgan dollars, look up those. The original Peace dollars that used to be in circulation at one time. Yes, they were U.S. coins that were in circulation. They gave us fiat currency. Got to study what the bankers did, the Rothschilds. Look up the movie Money Masters, Monopoly Man. So I gave you guys a lot of free game right there. I'm gonna get ready to head on out. And thank you guys for watching, staying loyal to the channel. If you stay loyal, and till next time, you guys take care. I'm out. Peace.